The year my father and brother died in battle, I went to the capital to seek refuge with my fiancée. The young master of a noble family was proud and arrogant, his heart already belonging to another. Unable to defy his parents, he poured all his resentment onto me. At the autumn hunt, he used me as a wager, betting with a group of noble sons, whoever can beat me today, I'll give Changqing to him. Doesn't she just want to marry into the duke's mansion? A husband guides his wife. Whatever I tell her to do, she must do. Under everyone's watchful eyes, I climbed out of the sedan chair, drew the longbow, and shot an arrow through my fiancée's right knee. When my mother taught me to tame horses as a child, she once instructed me, the first time you fall off the horse, remove the saddle. The second time you fall off, take off its bridle. I patted the dirt off myself, tilted my head and asked Mother, if I remove all the horse's restraints, what do I do if it throws me off a third time? Mother gazed at the red steed galloping wildly at the edge of the desert, drew her longbow fully, her voice steady. Then it means this is a beast that can never be tamed. If it can't be broken, kill it with one arrow. That horse wailed terribly when it fell, just like Wei Shaoling before me now. His gaze met mine, his eyes filled with thick disbelief. Ching, you actually hurt me. I was just joking around, and you hate me this much. The rest of his words were drowned out by the arrow that grazed past his cheek. I lowered the longbow, took the plain handkerchief handed over by the maidservant, dabbed the corner of my mouth, and sincerely apologized to Wei Shaoling. Young Master Wei, I am sorry. I just wanted to play a little joke on you. You won't mind, will you? He wagered her like property at the hunt, saying, whoever beats me gets Changqing, a husband guides his wife. So she shot an arrow through his kneecap, crippling his political future forever, then smiled and said, I was just joking, you won't mind, right? Using his exact words, she didn't argue or cry, she spoke in arrows. One shot destroyed his career, his arrogance, and his assumption she'd tolerate humiliation. That is not revenge, that is precision. She learned from her mother, if the horse throws you 3 times, kill it. He threw her dignity away once. She didn't wait for twice. Wei Shaoling minded very much, for a noble son destined to inherit a title and seek a future in the Imperial court. A shattered right kneecap meant his path to glory was severed. Before the autumn hunt was over, the Wei family carried Wei Shaoling, whose face was pale as paper, and knelt before the Imperial tent, their cries shaking the heavens, demanding His Majesty severely punish the culprit. When the palace servants came to summon me, the area before the Imperial tent was already packed tight. Noble sons and their womenfolk all wore expressions of disdain, secretly whispering to each other, sizing up this barbarian from the northern frontier. Those gazes and whispers wove into a net, dragging me back to that bitter winter of wind and snow. That winter when my father and brothers died in battle at Yanmen Pass. I was tied by my mother onto a horse galloping toward the capital. In the depths of winter, my wounds on horseback cracked from the cold, and my fever kept returning. By the time I reached the capital, I was on the verge of losing consciousness. It was Wei Shaoling who reached out and caught me as I slipped from the horse. He took me into the Duke's mansion and catered to my every whim. When my family was destroyed and I was gravely wounded, falling in love with the fiancée, who extended a helping hand, was only natural. I spent a period of peaceful and tranquil life together with Wei Shaoling, until the Grand Princess exposed Yang Wei, the governor of the 24 cities of the northern border, for colluding with the enemy and committing treason, having his entire family arrested and brought to the capital. Only then was this illusory and hasty goodwill finally torn apart. When my father and brothers were defending Yanmen Pass to the death, the 100,000 garrison troops of the 24 cities were merely 30 li away. It was Yang Wei who defied military orders, concealed military intelligence, and colluded with the northern DI from within and without, dragging my entire Chang family to their deaths. Finally, heaven has eyes. I waited and hoped, until at last the 3 judicial offices concluded their trial. Yang Wei was sentenced to death by 1,000 cuts, his family property confiscated, and his relatives exiled. That day the sky was clear, yet I felt an inexplicable unease in my heart. As if possessed, I stepped out of the West Garden and passed through the Moon Gate. Young Wanyi, the legitimate daughter of the Young family, who should have been awaiting death in the Imperial prison, was there with tears streaming down her face like pear blossoms in the rain, throwing herself into Wei Shaoling's arms like a swallow returning to its nest. In that moment, the blood in my entire body nearly froze. Wei Xiaoling held Yang Wanyi in his embrace and looked up at me, frozen in place. His voice even carried a matter-of-fact calmness. Yang Wei deserved death 10,000 times over, but his family members are innocent. She and I were old acquaintances. Chongqing, you should understand me. The blood of my loyal Chang family had not yet dried, and my fiancé was asking me to show understanding for the family of the chief culprit. How absurd. I returned the marriage certificate to Wei Xiaoling and moved out of the Duke's residence. Wei Xiaoling came to apologize several times, but I never showed myself. Yet Wei Xiaoling's guilt made that Yang family's legitimate daughter sense a crisis. For a time, rumors spread throughout the capital. Governor Yang died unjustly. That General Chang coveted military merit and refused to let Governor Yang intervene. I heard the garrison troops from the 24 cities had already reached outside Yanmen Pass, but were intercepted by General Chang's men. And now the Chang family lost the battle, yet they still want Governor Yang's family to pay with their lives. How unjust. Yang Wanyi didn't believe anyone in the capital would still care about the Chang family who died thousands of miles away, so she acted without any concealment. She should never ever have dragged my father and brother into this. I carried my sword to the Duke's residence and thrust it into Yang Wanyi's left chest. Wei Xiaoling flew into a rage, had me restrained, and made me watch as his servants smashed the statue the Duke's residence had made for my father. Every person who participated was one of the great Yan subjects my father had desperately wanted to protect before he died in battle. The statue draped in a red cloak hadn't fully dried yet when a guard's foot kicked hard at the clay figure's waist. With a thunderous crash, the statue toppled, its head rolling off, covered in dust and mud. Those clay-sculpted eyes still stared wide open, gazing at this sky above the capital, a boundless azure so different from Yanmen Pass. Blue sky showered golden sunlight, enveloping Wei Xiaoling from behind. He leaned down to look at me, his face shrouded in shadow. I couldn't see clearly. I could only hear his icy voice. Changqing, I know you hate me for favoring Wanyi, but her father and brother are about to die. She bears such infamy. If I don't favor her a little more, how can she survive? I thought the vast skies of the northern frontier couldn't raise a narrow-minded eagle. Yet I never expected you would harm someone's life over personal feelings. My gaze met those clay-like eyes. Wei Xiaoling's angry voice drifted near and far. I finally understood. This isn't the northern frontier. I am just an orphan girl with no one to back me up. Let alone Wei Xiaoling. Even Yang Wanyi never took me seriously. Not to mention this deeply entrenched Duke's mansion. Wei Xiaoling ultimately still protected Yang Wanyi, making her a distant relative of the Duke's mansion from Jiangyan. Though he hadn't shown himself for a long time, Yang Wanyi, with her identity as the Wei mansion's cousin, thrived among the noble ladies in the capital, stealing all the spotlight. Compared to Yang Wanyi's flamboyant ways, the Chang residence was deserted, and I stayed behind closed doors. The case of Yang Wei's treason was already ironclad, the execution imminent. At time, rumors had already spread in the palace that His Majesty's cough had worsened after autumn. Court had been suspended for days, and all memorials were presented by the cabinet at his sickbed. The court officials appeared calm on the surface, but their gazes had begun to waver in secret. If I drag the Duke's manor into this now, it'll only create more complications. I must endure. But I was wrong. The third prince heard the rumors in the capital and went to the prison to interrogate Yang Wei, inquiring about the Yanmen Pass incident. Wei Xiaoling was the third prince's study companion, and they were very close. He must have been fanning the flames behind this, covered in blood. Yang Wei sat upright in the dim Imperial prison, his face full of righteousness. The great defeat at Yanmen Pass cost tens of thousands of soldiers and civilians their lives. Someone must bear the responsibility. Since General Chang's family has already died for the country, why dig into the details and disturb the departed souls? Yang was incompetent and failed to provide timely rescue, leading to the fall of the pass and the loss of lives. Even 100 deaths cannot atone for this. I only ask for death to apologize to the world. Once his words from prison spread, the entire capital was in an uproar. Yang Wei, who had colluded with the enemy and betrayed the country, became an upright gentleman of honorable conduct. The loyal souls who fought to the death became sinners who recklessly sought glory. The rumors grew fiercer, and the third prince's faction now regarded Yang Wei as a legendary minister, rallying support for him. And the one who pushed all this to its climax was young Wanyi. At the turn of spring and summer, the Grand Princess held a banquet inviting noble ladies of the capital, and an invitation was sent to the Chang residence. The Grand Princess had once been a hostage in Beatty across the vast desert. We had met a few times, and I didn't want to slight her. During the banquet, someone brought up Yang Wei, and that was when Yang Wanyi spoke up. Though I grew up in Zhengyan, I've heard some old tales from the border. My father is a merchant, and he always avoided Yanmen Pass. That father-son pair guarding the city are insatiably greedy, fleecing every passing merchant. But Governor Yang of the 24 cities opened another route, protecting merchants and benefiting the people. The entire hall fell deathly silent, then erupted into uproar. Before the banquet even ended, rumors had already spread everywhere. Public outrage boiled over, and all their fury was vented upon the sole remaining heir of the Chang family. On my way to offer incense, I was surrounded by an angry mob. Someone skilled in martial arts had mixed in among them and plunged a blade into my left chest, the exact spot where I had wounded Yang Wanyi. As the world spun around me, I saw Wei Xiaoling's face. He held me, his voice trembling. "Cheng, hold on. The Imperial physician will be here soon." With my father and brother dead, and the Chang family's reputation in ruins, I had long been utterly exhausted these past days. As my consciousness drifted in and out, his voice came from far and near. "Cheng, I was wrong. Please wake up. I swear, once you wake up, the third prince will never interfere in this matter again, and Yang Wei will be yours to deal with as you please." I pulled through, dragging my ailing body. I went to the Grand Princess's residence and delivered the poisoned wine to the Imperial prison. When Yang Wei saw me, his face was filled with terror as he collapsed to the ground. "Changqing, His Majesty hasn't sentenced me to death yet. You can't take the law into your own hands. If you kill me, your father and brother's reputations still won't be restored. It'll only confirm that your Chang family has something to hide. I will clear the Chang family's name myself. 10 years, 20 years. Once that person ascends the throne, I can make it happen. But Yang Wei, I absolutely cannot let him live any longer." 2 attendants pinned Yang Wei to the ground. I gripped his jaw and poured the poisoned wine down his throat. A blade sliced through the air with a whistling sound, piercing through my hand that was restraining Yang Wei. Wei Xiaoling led soldiers flooding in, turning his head to avoid my gaze. "New witnesses have emerged in Yang Wei's case. His Majesty wishes to re-examine it today." Seeing this, Yang Wei scrambled to the side and forced the poisoned wine out of his throat. The witness was a garrison soldier Wei Xiaoling had brought from Yanmen Pass during his half-month disappearance. He knelt before the hall, his voice choked with blood like tears, accusing the Chang father and son of concealing military intelligence and recklessly seeking glory, causing the deaths of tens of thousands of civilians. The Emperor, bedridden, was furious. He summoned the Princess Royal who had exposed Yang Wei, demanding a thorough investigation. I looked at Wei Xiaoling. His face was turned away, neck taut. I slowly pulled out a smile. The third prince had expended great effort to have Yang Wei's case re-examined. So when the Princess Royal presented the secret letter before the Emperor, His Majesty believed it almost immediately. This secret letter contained not only correspondence between the Northern D's leftwise king and Yang Wei, but also implicated several officials in the capital, vaguely touching upon the third prince's maternal clan. Yang Wei lay prostrate on the ground, his throat rendered hoarse by the poison, making strange gurgling sounds, unable to utter any more righteous words. His Majesty stared at the secret letter, his face ashen, his gaze finally falling on the third prince Zhao Zhaoheng. "Zhaoheng, you tell me, what do you think of this matter of Yang Wei colluding with the enemy?" The third prince Zhao Zhaoheng stepped forward and bowed, his posture proper, his voice clear. "This son believes that even if Governor Yang was negligent in oversight, General Chang and his son have already died for the country. If we pursue every minor detail further, it may chill the hearts of the border soldiers. Father Emperor is benevolent, bastard." The secret letter was hurled at the third prince's forehead, and the court officials knelt on the ground. "Even now, you still dare to speak honeyed words here, making excuses for him." The third prince was struck and turned his head aside, his jade crown slightly askew. He froze in place, maintaining his half-bowed posture, the mask of gentle composure on his face cracking inch by inch. Yang Wei was sentenced to death by Lingqi. The third Prince Zhao Zhaoheng was confined to his residence, forbidden to leave without imperial decree. It was called confinement, but in reality it was imprisonment. The lives of tens of thousands of soldiers and civilians at Yanmen Pass might not be enough to knock on the vermilion gates of the capital, but reaching beneath the imperial desk, attempting to overturn heaven and earth and grasp at imperial power, that was courting death. With the third prince's fall, the deeply entrenched duke's residence was also severely weakened, its gates suddenly deserted. It was on such a rainy night that Wei Shaoling climbed over the wall into the Chang residence. The third prince is a wise lord. After he ascends the throne, he will naturally clear your father and brother's names. Why did you forge false evidence for the eldest princess? That woman has the heart of a wolf, audaciously trying to let the hen crow at dawn. For your personal vendetta, you would negotiate with a tiger for its skin, dragging down the entire Great Yan Empire. The way Wei Shaoling looked at me that night was just like the Chang family members now kneeling before His Majesty, wishing they could tear me apart alive. But they couldn't do it. His Majesty felt guilty toward me, even when I injured someone in public under everyone's eyes. His Majesty only summoned me before him and gently inquired about the matter. His Majesty had been ill for a long time. Before the autumn hunt, his health had rarely improved, and he was in good spirits. I stood beside Wei Shaoling, answering with lowered eyes in a submissive manner. Your Majesty's wisdom is clear. This humble subject's daughter was merely joking with the Wei heir. My impervious attitude made the people from the Duke's mansion even angrier. What kind of joke requires shooting an arrow through someone's kneecap? You deliberately intended to ruin my family's heir's future. Your heart deserves death. This long arrow pierced his right knee and will certainly leave him crippled. You truly have a vicious heart. I turned my head to look at the speaker. Back then, Wei Shaoling shot through my right palm. Can't I still draw a bow properly now? The Wei heir has a strong physique. With proper care, he will surely recover quickly. You still say you were joking. This is clearly deliberate revenge. In an instant, the crowd was filled with indignation. The eldest princess watched quietly for a while, memorizing everyone who spoke up for the Duke's manor openly or secretly, before stepping forward with a bow. Father Emperor, this daughter has just received good news. The Emperor waved his hand dismissively, focused on listening to the complaints from the Duke's manor, paying her no attention. Yet the eldest princess spoke regardless. Urgent military report from the northern frontier. Changqing's mother, the widow of General Chang Yanyan, Lin Yingyi, lay hidden behind enemy lines for 6 months and 3 days ago. Severed the head of the northern Dai King. It has been sent to the Dingbei army camp. Heaven blesses Great Yan, loyalty and valor endure. All sounds in the hall came to an abrupt halt. Immediately, everyone fell to their knees. Heaven blesses Great Yan. Heaven blesses Great Yan. Heaven blesses Great Yan. The Emperor's face first showed irrepressible joy, but when his gaze fell upon the eldest princess, this joy gradually faded. He stared at the eldest princess with a peculiar expression for a long while before slowly speaking. The Chang family is loyal and valiant, their blood shed for the nation. Changqing is of Yannen's bloodline, and it is common for young people to have occasional conflicts in their youthful vigor. Let this matter end here. The people from the Duke's manor stood frozen in place, not expecting such an outcome. It was Wei Shaoling who reacted first, prostrating himself in kowtow. It was merely a trivial matter. I dare not trouble your Majesty with such concerns. This subject was reminded of past years hunting together with the third prince, and feeling sentimental at the familiar scene. I lost focus for a moment, and got injured. Wei Shaoling was gambling, betting that the Emperor still has lingering feelings for the third prince, betting on the pressure brought to the Emperor by the military report that the Chang family's military achievements reached him before the eldest princess. The Emperor personally helped Wei Shaoling up, his gaze dark. Your childhood friendship with Zhaoheng is truly rare. Since that is the case, let Zhaoheng go to your residence to recuperate for half a month. This lifted the third prince's house arrest. The people of the Duke's residence immediately knelt to express their gratitude. Wei Shaoling's injury in exchange for lifting the third prince's house arrest was a joyous occasion for the Duke's residence. On the way back to the residence, my carriage was stopped by someone, and the eldest princess lifted the curtain and entered without any hesitation. She waved her hand, stopping me from bowing, and handed the plain letter in her hand to me. Father Emperor intended to grant you the title of County Lady, but this princess declined on your behalf. Right now we appear to be flourishing, but in reality we're on shaky ground. It is not wise to be too conspicuous. I unfolded the plain letter, lowered my head to read it carefully, and replied without looking up. Chang Qing will respectfully follow the princess's teachings. The eldest princess tilted her head and stared at the carriage curtain floating in the wind, her voice drifting. Chang Qing, this princess knows you harbor resentment in your heart. This princess will surely compensate you in the future. I didn't make another sound, and burned the plain letter in my hand. Only after watching the last bit of ash being crushed did the eldest princess turn and leave. The cold wind lifted the door curtain, and a figure flashed by. After the autumn hunt, the emperor's illness gradually worsened. The third prince, now freed from house arrest, secluded himself to attend to his ailing father, and no longer involved himself in court affairs. For a time, the Grand Princess's residence was bustling with visitors. Under these circumstances, with the princess's residence receiving guests daily, the Chang residence seemed ever more deserted. It was in this situation that Wei Shaoling arrived at the Chang residence, bearing an imperial edict of bestowed marriage. His right leg had recovered well, and one could hardly tell it had ever been so severely injured. Chang Qing, these past days I've been constantly thinking, how did we come to this? I never had romantic feelings for Yang Wanyi. I helped Yang Wei back then because the third prince was deceived by him, believing there truly was injustice in the Yanmen Pass case. I was your fiancé. If I had spoken up to defend General Chang under those circumstances, it would only have put you in greater danger. The light and shadow under the corridor were half bright and half dark. His face was handsome, his expression sincere, and the pain in his eyes so genuine it could almost drown one's heart. I stood on the steps with my hands folded, not answering. Wei Shaoling sighed and reached out to grasp my sleeve. I know you trust the Grand Princess, but these past days everyone under her has gained power, yet only you and General Lin have received not a single reward. She is giving you the cold shoulder to discipline you, to make you remember that the only one you can rely on has always been her. I tried to shake off Wei Shaoling's hand, but froze in place. He took the opportunity to reach up to my shoulder, coaxing gently. Chang Qing, I truly want to protect you. The third prince is benevolent when he ascends to the throne in the future. I will surely obtain a first-rank noble title for you, making you the most honored woman in Great Yan, second only to the Empress. I accepted the Imperial edict, only saying I needed to think about it. Wei Shaoling's steps were light when he left, his back radiating confidence of certain victory. He was always this confident, believing I still longed for those peaceful times of reading together under the lamp. Believing that arrow I shot at him was merely a jealous outburst from a lovesick girl. He said he had never been moved by young Wanyi, who knows who he was trying to fool. On the day of my coming-of-age ceremony, he traveled 1,000 miles from the capital to gift me a pair of hairpins. That very night, he was embracing Yang Wanyi, who had come visiting with her father, in the back courtyard of the Chang residence. Yang Wei was working for the third prince. The entanglement between Wei Shaoling and Yang Wanyi was a tacit understanding among the three families, so they all had a common obstacle: my father. As long as father lived, the third prince's reach couldn't extend to the northern frontier. It was the third prince who wanted my father dead, who wanted the entire Chang family destroyed. Wei Shaoling was an accomplice, but right now I have more important things to do. I bound Yang Wanyi and brought her to the ruined temple with almost no effort. Yang Wei died bearing the name of a traitor, and Yang Wanyi, this orphaned girl, was destined to be cast aside by the third prince. I wore a veiled hat, yet Yang Wanyi recognized me at a glance. Her face was full of anger. Chang Qing, it really is you. You slut. Do you think without me Shaoling would like you? You are truly delusional. Back then, when he made the engagement with you, it was only because your dead father used his power to force him. Do you know what they say about you behind your back? They say your entire Chang family is vulgar and uncouth, like savages eating raw meat. Just thinking about the engagement with you makes him feel like he is sitting on pins and needles. Seeing my expression unchanged, her voice grew increasingly hysterical. Do you think you can still turn things around? So what if my father is dead? The Chang family's reputation for treason has already stunk up the entire capital. Your father and brother died for nothing. They'll bear the infamy and be despised by everyone. Is that so? I nodded and drew a dagger from my sleeve. Young Wanyi's face instantly turned deathly pale, shrinking back and retreating in panic. Changqing, have you gone mad? If you dare hurt me, Shaling won't let you off. I stepped forward slowly, watching Yang Wanyi's pale face, and let out a soft laugh. Who said I was going to kill you? Yang Wanyi breathed a sigh of relief. She resumed that noble and arrogant demeanor, her voice full of contempt. Hemph, so now you know to be afraid. If you don't kneel down and kowtow to beg me to spare you, I'll definitely tell Shaling about this. The rest of her words were drowned out by a blood-curdling scream that pierced the sky. When Wei Shaling found Yang Wanyi, she hadn't suffered any fatal injuries. Only a hibiscus face remained, scarred with knife marks. I heard that night, Yang Wanyi collapsed in Wei Shaling's arms, her cries shrill and mournful, but I waited and waited at the Chang residence with the dagger stained with Yang Wanyi's blood. Yet Wei Shaling never came to settle scores. When the sky turned pale with dawn, the glaring morning sun left my eyes dazed and hollow. Only then did I realize Yang Wei was dead. The lives of the entire Yang family repaid, but a fraction of the suffering endured by the people of Yanmen Pass. Even Yang Wanyi, the one who slipped through the net, would live in agony for the rest of her life. That oath I made through gritted teeth, hunched over horseback in the bitter wind and rain. In this moment it seemed to have all come true. The flame burning in my chest instantly lost its direction. All that remained was a handful of lukewarm ash, scattered by a single gust of wind. As the ashes rose, I saw Shitu's eyes. Shitu was an abandoned baby picked up by old Shu, the city guard raised on scraps from 100 families until he was 10. He always followed behind me, calling me Sister Qing, the day the city fell. He clutched old Shu's broken red tasseled spear, standing between me and the pursuing soldiers. His scrawny body trembled violently, yet his voice pierced through the smoke and dust filling the sky. Cheng Cheng run the last word shattered in the wind. I covered my face, unable to hold back my laughter, yet tears surged out through the gaps between my fingers. Wei Shaling said the Grand Princess was a hen crowing at dawn yet. This very woman, while held hostage in Beatty and violated countless times, still saved captured women and children again and again. Across the vast desert she delivered dying Dayan subjects into my father's hands one by one, then resolutely turned back to face the towering fury. She said she was Dayan's Grand Princess, and she would not die in Beatty. Protecting her people was her mission. But what about Zhao Zhaoheng? With his powerful maternal clan scheming for his future, he sat calmly on the fishing platform, already a winner. Yet he still reached his hand toward the northern border, toward the gates built with the flesh and blood of countless soldiers. For that swelling ambition, for that chair he believed should have been his, what gave him the right. Me wedding with Wei Shaling was set for September, leaving ample time for my mother to return to the capital. During the wedding preparations, Yang Wanyi seemed to have vanished into thin air. Wei Shaling, who kept saying I should be understanding, didn't utter a single word of questioning or reproach because of the Chang family army in my mother's hands. The third prince, Zhao Zhaoheng, did see me a few times, though. Each time dressed plainly with gentle features, his words full of remorse. The last time we met, he said he was going to Huguo Temple for spiritual cultivation, to chant sutras for my father and brother for 100 days, to atone for his sins. Before I could even speak, Wei Shaling was already anxiously persuading from the side. Zhao, the court situation is still unstable, and His Majesty's health is poor. If you leave now, what are we supposed to do? But Zhao Zhaoheng only shook his head, his expression desolate. I am not a wise ruler, nor do I have the face to remain in this position. You all should find another worthy tree to perch on. The two were at a standstill, and it was I who first broke the deadlock. Your Highness, the matter of praying for blessings is not urgent. However, my mother will soon be returning to the capital by Imperial decree. I raised my eyes to meet their hopeful gazes. Back then, Shaling mentioned the third prince many times to my father and mother in the northern frontier. Before I returned to the capital, my mother said her greatest regret was not being able to see the third prince in person. Zhao Zhaoheng slowly straightened up and gave a slight bow. Madame Chang is a heroine among women. This prince should apologize to her in person. In the end, he didn't go to Huguo Temple. Instead, he set up a small Buddhist hall in his residence, fasting for 100 days to pray for the Chang family and the soldiers at the border. When the news spread, praise came like a tide. The third prince is benevolent. To know one's mistakes and correct them is the greatest virtue. I sat in the flower hall of the Chang residence, listening to the maid report the rumors from outside, and inexplicably thought of the year the Princess Royal returned to the capital. That year, my father won a great victory against the Northern D, reclaiming 3 cities. To show their sincerity for peace negotiations, the Northern D voluntarily returned the Princess Royal who had been detained for many years. To shut her up, the Northern D allowed her to bring back 3,000 women and 500 children who were captured Yan citizens. And, then, the noble families in the capital were in an uproar, cursing the Princess Royal for her womanly benevolence and lack of foresight, claiming that children are the foundation of Great Yan. No one cared that in Northern D, children could survive, but captured women could not. The world has always been harsher on women, it seems, finding fault even in something 9/10 perfect. And how about men? To correct one's mistakes is the greatest virtue. I began to frequent the shops in the capital. The Chang family had no relatives left in the capital, so I handled all the wedding preparations myself. Wei Shaoling accompanied me at first, but when he saw I was only interested in visiting the most luxurious shops to select wedding gowns and headpieces, he gradually let down his guard. Moreover, after the engagement was set, thanks to the Duke's Manor's reputation, invitations from noble ladies in the capital came like snowflakes, inviting me to banquets and flower viewings. I accepted them all gladly, which made him even more convinced that I was indulging in such superficial formalities. He no longer followed me everywhere. He and the third prince had more important matters to scheme. His Majesty's illness grew worse by the day, but court affairs were firmly held by the Princess Royal. In her early years detained in Northern DI, she had formed old friendships with border army generals, and now many military officers were willing to follow her command. It is just that the court had always valued civil officials over military ones, and the third prince had never taken her seriously before. Until my father died in battle, and Yanmen Pass fell, the importance of military generals suddenly became prominent, and the Grand Princess's prestige rose along with it. In contrast, although the third prince had been released from house arrest, it became increasingly difficult for him to have an audience with the emperor. The momentum of those who once flocked to him had long since dissipated completely. This increasingly out-of-control situation made the third prince very irritable. This irritation lasted until my mother's wedding gifts arrived. The deputy general brought 64 loads of dowry and a message from my mother. Affairs at Yanmen Pass were numerous and complicated. She was stretched thin and unable to come to the capital to attend my wedding. The tiger tally my father left behind was kept among the dowry. The Chang residence had few people, only a few old servants for errands, making it difficult to guard. So these endless chests and trunks did not stay at the residence, but went straight in a grand procession into the Duke's mansion. 64 loads of dowry, each chest tied with deep red wedding flowers. That red reflected on the faces of everyone in the Duke's mansion, all showing a floating air of joy. The closer my wedding date came, the more restless the hearts of people in the capital became. That atmosphere of an approaching storm enveloped everyone, and even the whispers in the streets and alleys carried a faint anxiety. Only, I, embroidering my wedding dress in my chambers each day, remained uninvolved. This tranquility lasted until the night before the wedding. By all reason, the Chang residence should have been decorated with lanterns and festoons. At this moment, bustling with noise, yet I was dressed only in a plain white ruse skirt, sitting alone in the courtyard bathed in cold moonlight, with not a trace of festivity around me. Yang Wanyi barged in at this moment. Her face was caked with an extremely thick layer of powder, frighteningly pale. Upon seeing me dressed so plainly, she clearly froze for a moment. Then her eyes erupted with venomous hatred, burning away that bit of surprise completely. Chang Qing, her voice was shrill. You are quite pleased with yourself, aren't you? You ruined my face just to steal Shaoling and take the position of the young lord's wife, didn't you? She stepped forward twice, the heavy powder unable to conceal the twisted madness in her expression. But do you know, not only did he not despise me, he was heartbroken for me, searching everywhere for famous doctors. You think he would actually marry you? You are Chang Yannen's daughter, which means you are destined to never become a true lady, Wei, in this lifetime. The night wind swept through the courtyard, carrying the chill of late autumn. I raised my eyes and calmly looked past her. In the direction of the distant palace, there were faint sounds of hurried hoofbeats, shattering the last false tranquility of this capital city. When I was escorted into the palace by Yang Wanyi's people, the third prince was already seated upon the throne. He wore silver-white armor, an aura of killing intent permeating around him. Seeing me step into the hall, he actually let out a low laugh. "Chang Ching, oh Chang Ching. Your Chang family army really has some skills. In just half a shichen, you went from Donghua Gate to Chanyuan Hall. 10 years of scheming and 26 years of caution, all undone by your Chang family's iron hooves in half a shiken." He seemed to sink into some kind of memory, his expression becoming somewhat manic. "Just for this half shiken, I didn't dare be late for morning studies or slack on night strategies, playing the filial son before Father Emperor, acting the benevolent ruler before court officials, walking on thin ice, trembling with fear. I only made one mistake, just one, and Father Emperor discarded me like worn shoes, and all the ministers flocked to that barbarian woman's skirts. Why?" His face was twisted, his chest heaving violently, as if recalling those days of confinement. "Your Majesty." Wei Shaoling stepped forward, 2 paces at the right moment, reaching out to steady his violently trembling arm. "You've already won." The third prince's breathing gradually calmed. He shook off Wei Shaoling, turned and walked step by step back to that supreme seat. When he turned and sat down, the madness in his eyes had been restrained, leaving only a cold indifference. He lowered his gaze to look down at me, as if looking at an ant, and tossed the long spear in his hand before me. "To die under my Dingjiang is also an honor for you. Go ahead and end it yourself." Wei Shaoling's expression changed slightly. He stepped forward 2 paces and was about to speak again. I bent down to pick up Dingjiang, wiped the dust off the long spear, and spoke before Wei Shaoling could. "You won? Did you see the Grand Princess's corpse?" The expressions of all 3 changed simultaneously. Yang Wanyi's face was full of venom. She drew the flexible sword from Wei Shaoling's waist and attacked me. "Chang Ching, you are about to die and you are still spouting nonsense to deceive people. The Grand Princess is already a stray dog. You go to the underworld first, and she'll follow soon." "Wanyi, don't." Wei Shaoling's pupils contracted sharply as he reached out and grabbed her wrist. In that split second, I stepped forward, and the long spear in my hand pierced Yang Wanyi's chest. The flexible sword in Yang Wanyi's hand fell to the ground with a clang. Her eyes widened to their limits as she looked at me, then looked at Wei Shaoling in disbelief. Her lips trembled, but only a mouthful of bloody foam came out. Wei Shaoling's hand was still frozen in mid-air, maintaining the blocking posture, but the color drained from his face instantly. He probably always thought that when I ruined Yang Wanyi's face but spared her, it was out of jealousy, leaving room for mercy. He was wrong. Even though I wished I could eat her flesh and drink her blood, if I had killed Yang Wanyi back then, the third prince and Wei Shaoling wouldn't have believed me so easily. Yang Wanyi needed to live bearing those scars, so only by doing so would the third prince and Wei Shaoling believe that I am just a jealous woman still clinging to Wei Shaoling, a lovesick fool they could easily manipulate and who would never betray them. But I won't let anyone off who paved their path to glory with the flesh and blood of Yanmen, past soldiers and the souls of tens of thousands of common people. Not a single one. The long spear withdrew, blood splattered 3 feet, Yang Wanyi completely collapsed, the light in her eyes fading bit by bit. My clean and decisive killing blow made the third prince and Wei Shaoling sense something was off. As if answering their suspicions, thunderous hoofbeats came from the pale horizon. A clear, sharp female voice pierced through the clamor, coming from far to near, resounding through the palace. Third Prince Zhao Zhaoheng, colluding with traitors, holding loyal subjects hostage, raising troops in rebellion. Y'all soldiers heed my command. Follow this princess into the palace to protect His Majesty. Purge the court of treacherous ministers. Execute the rebels as. Her words fell. A figure had already galloped to the square before the hall. The Grand Princess wore black armor, silhouetted against the breaking dawn, mounted on a snow-white warhorse. The longbow in her hand had yet to be put away, the bowstring still trembling. The morning light outlined her upright figure, and also illuminated the soldiers in gleaming armor, flooding in like a tide behind her, the true Chang family army. The third prince had lost, utterly defeated. When the ministers stumbled over, the stench of blood before the hall was overwhelming. The Grand Princess stood upon the steps, her black armor drenched in blood. She looked at the crowd, tears falling like rain. The traitor Zhao Zhaoheng raised an army to storm the palace and murdered Father Emperor. This princess failed to rescue him in time, and could only execute the traitor on the spot. After she finished speaking, she slowly knelt down and kowtowed heavily toward the inner hall. The ministers stood frozen, none daring to respond. At this moment, an aged figure stepped forward. It was the Grand Tutor who had served through 3 reigns, Feng Zheng. He looked at no one else, only bowing deeply to the Grand Princess. A nation cannot be without a ruler for even a day. Your Highness has executed the traitors and quelled the chaos, upheld the dynasty, rendered merit to the realm and virtue to the people. This old minister humbly requests that your Highness follow the mandate of heaven and ascend to the throne soon, to ease the hearts of all under heaven. The Grand Princess suddenly raised her head. Impossible. This princess only sought to execute the traitors. How could I dare? Your Highness. Another person stepped forward and knelt, the commander of the Imperial Guard. The Imperial Guard is willing to swear loyalty unto death to the new sovereign. We beseech your Highness to ascend the throne. We beseech your Highness to ascend the throne. The cries swiftly gathered from scattered voices into a wave. The dense crowd knelt one after another, eventually engulfing the entire plaza. The Grand Princess slowly rose to her feet. The tear stains on her face had not yet dried, but her gaze was already still as a deep pool, sweeping over the masses prostrating at her feet. The moment the morning sun leapt above the dust, the Grand Princess stepped, one step at a time, toward that supreme seat. Through dynastic changes, this seat had many masters, but the Grand Princess was the first woman in the square. Cries of "Long live the Empress" gradually rose. I knelt before the crowd, listening to the tide of congratulations surging toward the Grand Princess. The first imperial edict after the Empress's ascension was a self-reproaching decree. The decree stated, "The third prince, Zhao Zhaoheng, bearing royal blood, colluded with the treasonous minister Yang Wei to frame loyal subjects, causing General Chang Yanan and his troops to die unjustly at Yanmen Pass. I am deeply ashamed before the Chang family and the soldiers guarding the frontier. I shall offer sacrifices to heaven and earth at the summit of Mount Tai, and issue this decree to set the record straight." Rumors swept through the capital like wind. With the government's promotion, in tea houses and street corners throughout the city, everyone was praising how General Chang defended the isolated city to the death, and how the Chang family's sons fought to their last breath. My father and brother's names changed from traitors to loyal souls. My father's statue was rebuilt, standing in the widest square in the capital, its golden form restored, with incense offerings flourishing. Meanwhile, the kneeling statues of Zhao Zhaoheng and Yang Wei were bound in iron chains, forever bowing before the base of my father's statue, despised by all. I had someone relay every single thing that happened in the capital to Zhao Zhaoheng and Wei Shaoling, who were imprisoned in the Imperial prison. Yes, they weren't dead. One autumn afternoon, my mother sent a letter urging me to return to Yanmen Pass. Affairs in the northern frontier were settled, and I needed to go back to take over as General Chang. This was also Her Majesty's intention. Before leaving, I went to the Imperial prison. Deep within the Imperial prison, no daylight could be seen. Zhao Zhaoheng and Wei Shaoling were locked in cells facing each other. The once noble prince and young lord now had disheveled hair, dirty faces, and ragged clothes. Zhao Zhaoheng's eyes were clouded, staring motionlessly at the wall. Wei Shaoling looked even more wretched. He huddled in the corner, and when he heard footsteps, he suddenly raised his head. Upon seeing it was me, a complex light burst forth in his eyes. Chang Qing, as if something occurred to him, Wei Shaoling suddenly threw himself against the bars, his voice hoarse. "You've been scheming against me all along." I looked at Wei Shaoling and found him somewhat laughable. "You could help Zhao Zhaoheng scheme against my father and brother. So why can't I scheme against you?" His breathing quickened, still trying to hold on. "Then what about those days we spent at the Duke's mansion? What were they?" I tilted my head and looked at him with confusion. "Did you really think I got that handwritten letter from the third prince in that secret document at the border? I personally dug it out from the hidden compartment in your father's study." The cell fell deathly silent in an instant. Zhao Zhaoheng suddenly turned toward Wei Shaoling, rage from betrayal surging in his eyes. Wei Shaoling stood frozen in place, All color drained from his face, and actually began questioning me. Could it be you never loved me? I didn't even know how to respond to his words, love. This is just too absurd. A time like this, is that really the only question he has? I looked at Wei Shaoling with love, and said word by word, if that is your only question, then let me tell you never. Wei Shaoling, imprisoned and broken, asked if she ever loved him. She said never, then revealed everything was calculated, moving into his manor to find evidence. The rift with the princess was fake, the wedding prep was message passing, even her capture was planned. His childhood love was her infiltration mission. His devoted fiancé was his executioner. He helped murder her family. So she spent months dismantling his entire world while he thought she was picking out hairpins. Then she had him secretly executed and thrown in a mass grave. That is not closure, that is annihilation with receipts. That is not all. My tone was calm, as if stating the weather. I moved into the Duke's residence precisely to find evidence. If I couldn't find any, I'd fabricate some. The rift with the Grand Princess was an act. What she handed me in the carriage that day was a list of all her secret contacts in the capital. I used it to contact and hide the remnants of the Chang family army who infiltrated in batches. During those months of wedding preparation, every time I went in and out of shops and banquets, it was all to pass messages and arrange personnel. Even being captured in the end was part of the plan. I looked at Zhao Zhaoheng. The Grand Princess is a woman. Her succession would inevitably face obstruction. Only by letting the world witness you raising troops to storm the palace, commit regicide and treason, could she ascend to that position rightfully under the banner of purging the court and restoring order. You all, from beginning to end, were merely stepping stones on her path to the throne. A hoarse sound came from Wei Shaoling's throat like a dying beast. I stood up, taking one last look at the two ashen faces. Oh, right. The Chang family army never had any tiger tally. Genius. She sent 64 loads of dowry to the Duke's manor before the wedding, and they celebrated thinking they'd gotten the military command token. But it was all a trap. The real Chang army had already infiltrated the capital in secret, and they followed her, not tokens. While Wei Shaoling thought she was a lovesick fool shopping for wedding dresses, she was coordinating a coup. The dowry was bait. The wedding was cover. She played the jealous bride while orchestrating his destruction. That is not deception, that is warfare disguised as matrimony. They were brothers who ate, lived, and faced life and death together with my father and brother. They recognize people, not tokens. With that, I turned and left. Iron door closed heavily behind me, completely shutting out all the screaming, cursing, and breakdown. Telling them all this was merely to let them die as ghosts who understood. To eliminate future troubles, I've submitted a memorial to the Empress, requesting the secret execution of the two of them. Wei Shaoling and Zhao Zhaoheng died quietly, wrapped in a tattered mat and tossed into the mass grave. I returned to Yanmen Pass and took over the burden from my mother's hands. During those 6 months under cover in northern D, my mother's health had deteriorated beyond repair. The border needed me to defend it. The Empress reigned for 20 years. Her methods were decisive, pardoning those who deserved pardon, killing those who deserved death. The third prince's faction was uprooted entirely. With half the court emptied, she opened the Imperial examinations, promoted commoners, and even appointed 2 female officials with real talent to the court. The border stabilized, taxes were reduced, and gradually the signs of a new dynasty appeared among the common folk. Tea houses now had female storytellers, and shops run by women appeared in the streets. The camel bells of border trade rang day and night, with Hu merchants and Han traders eating from the same pot. As for me, I stayed at Yanmen Pass, becoming the new banner and guardian. The incense before my father's statue has always burned strong. Sometimes when I pass by, I stop and look for a while. The sunlight shining on the gilded armor is a bit blinding. He finally lived to see this day of peace and prosperity. That winter, I sat on horseback on the high slope outside Yanmen Pass, watching snow cover the former battlefield. All was silent, with only the wind howling past, carrying swirls of snow. Behind me came the chanting of soldiers drilling, each call deep and powerful, crashing against the ancient fortress walls, echoing toward the distant horizon. I turned my head and slowly rode back inside the pass. The city gates slowly closed behind me, shutting out the vast snowy plains and everything from the past. Here is what wrecks me. Chongqing survived her family's massacre, rode to the capital wounded and feverish, and fell for the fiancé Fei who saved her. Then she discovered he helped orchestrate her father's death. Her fiancé Fei, his best friend the third prince, and the mistress's father all conspired to destroy the Chang family for political gain. They framed her father as a traitor, let 100,000 soldiers die, then gaslit the entire capital into believing the Changs were corrupt. But Chongqing didn't just survive, she became a strategist. She shot her fiancé Fei's kneecap at a public hunt. Ending his career, moved into his manor to steal evidence, while playing the obedient bride coordinated with the princess, who'd been a hostage in enemy territory for years, to stage a coup, infiltrated her own army into the capital disguised as wedding guests, let herself be captured. So the third prince would reveal his treason, watch the princess become empress, first female ruler, had her fiancé Fei, and the prince secretly executed the devastation. Wei Shaoling thought her arrow was jealousy. Her ruining the mistress's face was pettiness. Her wedding prep was vanity. He never saw the general beneath the lovesick girl act. By the time he realized she'd been playing him for months, he was already in prison awaiting execution, the most satisfying part. In his final moments, he asked if she ever loved him. She said never. Then explained how every tender moment was reconnaissance. Every smile was strategy. Every tear was theater. She didn't just kill him, she erased the memory of their love, revealing it was always a mission. And the ending, she became the legendary General Chang, defending the border while the Empress, her ally, ruled for 20 years of prosperity. Her father's statue stands gilded in the capital square, while the third prince and Yang Wei's statues kneel in chains at its base, despised forever. The ultimate revenge isn't violence. It is rewriting history so thoroughly that your enemies are remembered as villains while you become a legend. Sometimes the most dangerous woman in the room is the one everyone underestimates, the lovesick fool, who is actually a general planning your execution.